Welcome to Off the Shelf with Christine and Katie. It's been a very busy month for newly released fantasy shows. Last month we were treated to House of Dragons, which is a prequel to the Game of Thrones series. And earlier this month we had The Rings of Power, which is a prequel to the Lord of Rings series.
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy. So if you've watched those, or maybe you've just been a long-term fan of high epic fantasy, or you're looking for some more to read, or you want to get started because you love those shows, we have some Fantasy Picks series for you.
And so feel free to read them now or add them to your TBR list in the future, but let us know in the comments what you think of our picks. And if you have any more titles to read, please, we always need more. We can't help ourselves. And as always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to be notified for future videos. It's very easy. You can do it right here. So tell me what makes an epic fantasy novel, since I'm still new to it.
So epic or high fantasies generally have a couple of characteristics. One of the main characteristics is that this is series or world building. These stories do not take place in the
our world,
real world that we're used to. They take place in alternate fictional worlds and typically have lots of magical elements.
I'm here for that.
These worlds have their own history and lore, religion, sometimes languages that are different from ours. They contain lots of characters. There's usually a quest or two, and there's always like that good versus evil, save the world type plot.
Yes.
These series also typically have a very high page
count.
So, you know, when you start these, you're in for a commitment.
Yes, but we have included some that have a lower commitment, so if you just want to dip your toe in, we got you covered.
And of course, most importantly, maps. You must have a map, so that they're very important to be included in the book because you do not want to get lost whilst questing.
Exactly. Like when you're on your way to Mordor, you need a map.
You need to know where you're going.
Or eagles.
Avoid the evils, avoid the pitfalls, avoid the traps.
Exactly.
and also know where.
So if you love cartology, this should probably be the series for you.
So, for now, let's get started with some of those books.
Yay! Alrighty, and I know we're starting off with a classic that Christine will not stop talking about, so we have to start with this first.
So this one, The Hobbit. This book is an epic adventure where the wizard Gandalf convinces the distinctively unadventurous hobbit Bilbo Baggins on a journey to help a group of dwarves defeat the powerful dragon Smaug. Smaug.
We have different pronunciations. It's fine.
While this book also serves as an introduction to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it works really nicely as a standalone. This is one of the books that can be classified as a high-level juvenile as well as an adult. So it's a great, I'm going to start reading fantasy, epic.
And if this has interested you, then you can move on to the Lord of the Rings, which we'll talk more about later. But it's a great one to start out with.
Good start one.
Yes.
Next we have the Castle series by Diana Wynne Jones. Now this is a YA trilogy, but I will say I read this.
But it is one of the classics.
When I've read it quite a few times. It's been many years. Might be time for another reread.
Okay.
So this series, this is the second book here, Castle in the Air. This series follows the lives of Howells Jenkins Pendragon, Sophie Hatter, their fire demon Calcifer, and their moving castle.
Which you may have heard before.
Howl's Moving Castle is the first novel to be written in the series. It is the story of young Sophie who leaves her life of near servitude in her mother's hat shop after she has been cursed to look like an old woman. And she ends up living with a very powerful and mysterious sorcerer, Howl Pendragon. Each book can be read as a standalone as well. If you like animated movies, Castle in the Air and Howl's Moving Castle are both animated movies that are excellent.
I still have to see those.
But I will say the books have so much more information on that whole world building. So it gives more about what's going on in these regions and their lore.
Okay.
And so it's definitely read the books if you've enjoyed the movies.
Nice. Okay, and the next one we want to recommend is The Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. She is a classic author and has won many awards. It has been also listed as YA, but is also for adults. And the first books in this 6-book series were originally written for young adults, but the overall series is good for adults as well, and both the characters and storyline develop throughout the series. The story is set in the fictional archipelago. Okay, I said that, did say it right. Of Earthsea, and it centers on a young mage named Jed, who was born in a village on the island of Gaunt. He displays a great power while still a boy and joins the School of Wizardry, where his prickly nature drives him to conflict with a fellow student.
Nice. Sorry, magical academies. That is
pretty much
another
a staple.
A staple.
That's a trope also
It
in
is.
the series.
So,
but this is the tale of his testing, how he mastered the mighty words of power, tamed an ancient dragon, and crossed the death threshold to restore balance. I have not personally read it, but I will tell you, a lot of my friends who are really into fantasy have constantly mentioned this author in this series.
And
so I think it's a must read.
It's a great series. The books do not hit that high page count.
Yes.
All collectively,
it's a very minimal page count.
collectively, you will be reading a decent sized series. But so it's another one that's a great introduction if you're just getting started. So.
Yes, so highly recommend.
So another one that was recommended by our coworker Sabrina is the Six of Crows Duology by Leah Bordego. You want to tell us a little bit of what that's about?
Sure. So this is actually a small series as well. It's a 2-book series about Kaz Brecker, who pulls off deadly heists in Ketterdam, which is known for international trade. He pulls off these heists with 600 individuals called Six of Crows, with various talents for thieving. But this particular burglary will make them rich beyond their wildest dreams, if they don't kill each other first. Rule number 1, don't kill your teammates. It has a lot of fun world-building characters and a lot of heist action, and some of the characters are currently still included in the Netflix TV series Shadow and Bone, which I have watched, and there are a lot of fun characters in that, so I assume the book also translates to that as well.
So Netflix combined the first book from the Shadow and Bone series with the first book in the Six of Crows duology. You can read the Six of Crows duology by itself without having to have read the whole Shadow and Bone. And there's some really interesting characters. As a matter of fact, Sabrina has a couple of thoughts on this series, so we're going to let her tell you a little bit about that.
Hi, I'm Sabrina. I'm a library assistant here at the Middletown Public Library. And today I'm very excited to talk about one of my favorite duologies, Six of Crows series. I read these a couple years ago before the TV show came out on Netflix, and I was super excited when they were going to do an adaptation. But these books are just so incredible and interesting, and they bring you into a fantasy world that is super intriguing because it has a lot of different elements that you wouldn't typically see in a fantasy novel, especially when it's coming from the point of view of a group of sort of outcasts that find friendship and family with one another, and that's like one of my favorite tropes, and I think it's done really well. You get 6 unique main characters, and you get to follow them throughout the series as they go on this heist, and you learn more about them and their backstories, and it's done so well, and each main character gets like their own spotlight, and you learn about them, and they're all wonderful characters. It's like so hard. As people ask me to pick a favorite, and it's so hard because depending on the day, it's a different favorite. They're all very lovable and very intriguing and complex, and with the overarching plot of a heist, which I love. And you're rooting for them, and the way that they like solve problems, you like don't see it coming. It's very, very intriguing. So I cannot recommend them enough.
Hey Sabrina! Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
I love these collector edition books. You want to show us a couple of features that are in there?
I will absolutely. I saw these. A friend sent them to me, and I said I absolutely have to have them. So this is the Six of Crows, the first book, and it has red edges on it. It's so beautiful. You open it up, and it's got a map, of course, so you can follow along. Because it does get confusing. You're like in a fantasy world.
You have to have a map to guide you.
You don't know where you're going. These characters are dropping scenes. This is a little bit of a out of context spoiler. And then in the back here, we have some portraits of the characters. So you have your main character portraits and a little bit about them.
So you could put a nice face to the character as you're reading it. Nice.
And little quotes and everything that tell you a little bit about them.
I might have to pick up a set of these.
I think that you should. And so this is the sequel. It's gold. and black. It just, they complement each other so well, too. And so you get another map here, which we love. And then we also have more portraits, but in a different style. So you get a little bit more...
Same people, but just
Same
different
people,
style.
different style. You get just a lovely depiction of the characters. And then a really fun element to both of the books is there's changing point of views in the chapter. And so the chapter title will have the main character, and each character has their own insignia. Like that is a little bit of a characteristic of theirs. So that's really cool. I absolutely love these editions.
Sabrina. Thank you so much, Sabrina.
Thanks
we
so
really
much.
enjoyed. Now we also have for you a couple of series that the first book has been published so far. So if you're looking for a series to try out,
Right, and to just get started this is the time.
These other books are coming. So if you're one of those people who can wait, then these might be some picks for you.
All right. I recommend, this is a new book that actually came out a little bit earlier this month, and it is Book of Night by Holly Black. This is Holly Black's first adult dark epic fantasy novel, and she's only been written teen before, so I'm so psyched she's now started to write for adults. But yes, like I said before, she's previously written a lot of fantasy novels for teens, and they mainly involve fairies, so if you're into that, go check out her previous works. But this book is about Charlie Hall, who has never found a lock she couldn't pick, a book she couldn't steal, except for this one because it's mine, or a bad decision she couldn't make. But now she's trying to live on the straight and narrow, at least until a shadow mage dies in her bar, and her life is thrown into chaos and back into the underworld that she tried so hard to previously leave. And book 2 is now due, it's going to be released in early 2023, so if you want to get on it before this becomes inevitably a series, this is a good one to start out with, and Holly Black writes so well, so I highly recommend her.
And next, new series that we've heard a lot of buzz about.
Yes.
Haven't been able to read it yet because it's constantly checked out. It's The Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is the Celestial Kingdom series by Sue Lynn Tam.
And it is a duology, so there's only 2 books.
Duology at this point,
yes.
There has been some talk that there may be more, but at this point you're looking at a duology. It's inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess Chang, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother pits her against the most powerful immortal in the realm and sets her on a dangerous path. There's that quest. Where choices come with deadly consequences, and she risks losing more than her heart. The second book, Heart of the Sun Warrior, is due to be released later this year. So this is a duology that you can give a try and then finish out by the end of the year. So that's another good pick for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now we have some longer series for those who are a bit more daring into this epic fantasy realm of ours. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the classic
Lord of the Rings. So this was my first epic fantasy series that I read very, very many years ago. Before you could watch the movie and then read the books.
Yes, there was only this thing back then called Just the Book series.
Just the
Before
Books.
everything became a fantasy show, this is what we had.
I was really fascinated when I found out that Tolkien wrote and developed the Elven language and used that throughout his books, not just small snippets. It's a fully fleshed out language. He has a fully fleshed out history and lore from Middle Earth, which is really great too.
Yes, and the languages that he writes are something that people actually have learned and spoken today.
And
so he's not only created a whole universe, he's created a whole language for people to learn. So
such a fandom that goes to these.
Really, he was like the starter point for all those languages, because like how Game of Thrones has a language, this also has a language.
Yeah. So now, what is the series about? Well, Frodo learns that the ring he inherited from Uncle Bilbo, the Hobbit,
read that for his backstory,
has the power to control the entire world, and he discovers to also corrupt its owner. A fellowship of hobbits, elves, dwarfs, and men is formed to destroy the ring by casting it into the volcanic fires of the Crack of Doom, where it was forged. Of course, the evil forces of the Dark Lord Sauron are plotting to stop them so the ring can be returned to Sauron and his quest to take over Middle-earth. So this does also fall under that questing, good versus evil,
friendship
savior,
elements as
friendship.
well.
It's so much.
Yes, and basically
Highly
also
recommend.
end of the world plot as well, so it has a lot of that.
Next book pick I have is The Witcher series by please forgive me for butchering this name, Andrzej Sapkowski.
Andrzej Sapkowski?
Okay. So for over a century, humans, dwarves, gnomes, and elves have lived together in relative peace, but times have changed, and the uneasy peace is now over. And the races are fighting once again. It seems the only good elf
Yes.
is a dead elf.
Pretty much.
Geralt of Rivia, the cunning assassin also known as the Witcher, has been waiting for the birth of a prophesized child, and this child has the power to change the world, for good or for evil. As the threat of war hangs over the land and the child is hunted for her extraordinary powers, it will become Geralt's responsibility to protect them all. And the Witcher never accepts defeat.
Never.
Now, this saga is a series of 6 novels and 2 short story novels. They've all been previously translated from the Polish. I have just started reading this series, and I'm finding the translation pretty easy to read.
Yeah.
I became interested in this series because it was a fun Netflix series, and the second season just came out.
Yes.
It does differ from the season. The first series kind of follows the book. But then the second season is a little bit different than the books, but still,
yes,
good pick.
And I will just say, Geralt is a really fun character in the Netflix show. So if that interests you, I'd highly recommend reading the books because then you get to learn more about his character. So, like I said, I only came to know this because of the Netflix show,
Yeah,
but it's
me
been
too.
a really fun ride.
I also knew about it from the video game my kids used to play, but again, it all intersects. So if you like the game, read the books. If you like the show, read the books. If you like the books, try the movie.
Okay.
All right, so now we have one of our coworkers who absolutely loves reading these high epic fantasy series, and she's going to give us a couple of her picks. So, Jenna, what do you have for us today?
Well.
Perfect.
Okay, great. We'll leave it to you.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm the Public Information Officer here at Middletown Township Public Library, and I have a stack of fantasy books to talk about what they're about. So first, Broken Earth Trilogy. This is the first book. It's called the 5th season. Basically, it is a somewhat apocalyptic world where there are catastrophic events out to get the main characters. It's mainly a character-driven story about a mother trying to find her child. Really good, won lots of awards, highly recommend. It's a complete trilogy, so you don't have to wait for any books to come out. Next, Lies of Lochlamore. I'm sorry, this one is by N.K. Jemisin, by the way. Next is Lies of Lochlamore by Scott Lynch. This is not a complete series. I believe it's supposed to be 5 books. I'm not quite sure about that. I have to check. But this is like a heist fantasy novel. It's a unique world. I think it's based on an Italian city, Renaissance time period. It's like a crew of characters that are known as the Gentlemen Bastards. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. You might need to bleep it. But they are hilarious and devious, and you'll laugh a lot reading this, and also become very attached to all of the characters. Next, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a great fantasy series for anyone who read Harry Potter as a child and is looking for something that gives you the same sort of magical school setting as Harry Potter, except it's a high fantasy world, so it's there's always another secret kind of thing. It's one main character point of view instead of multiple characters. He is charismatic and a little annoying, but you'll enjoy his point of view. Very popular fantasy series. It is also not complete. There's 2 out of 3 planned books are out. It's been quite a while since the last one came out. Reader beware. Next, this is a more recent fantasy series. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne is the first of the Bloodsworn saga. 2 out of 3 books are currently out. It's a Viking-based fantasy world. It's got a lot of action, a lot of fun, snarky characters. I've really enjoyed the first 2 books. Looking forward to the 3rd one. Next, this is my must-read fantasy book, The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. He is a very prolific writer. He's got several different fantasy series that are currently published. This is my favorite. Very unique world. It is a world that's swept by constant tempest, so all of the world building kind of reflects the fact that there are storms that sweep the whole continent every several days. The characters are really compelling. There are multiple viewpoint characters, and the world building is intense, so be ready for a lot of details and rereads with this one. There are 4 out of 10 planned books in this series currently published. And last but not least, of course, it's a must-read for any epic fantasy fan. I don't really have to explain much more, but still great, even after the show and all the other publicity. It's worth reading, and definitely a top pick. Those are all some of my top fantasy picks.
Okay, so we want to thank Sabrina and Jenna for helping us out with their recommendations and thoughts on these epic high fantasy series. There's
so many,
so
but they
many.
helped us out so much with their picks.
Yes.
They're big epic fantasy fans, so if you ever need any recommendations, we'll include our personal recommendation form that you can fill out below. But like I said, their recommendations were great.
Yeah,
And I'm so
absolutely.
glad they were able to join us today.
So we want to thank you too for joining us. Hopefully these suggested reads will help you out. Next time we are going to be dealing with some supernatural element books that'll kind of be perfect for that whole Halloween.
Yes, to get us into the spirit, which I'm already
season.
ready for.
So thanks again for joining us. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
All know that this first one is a Christine pick based on if you've been watching the first part of our video, and if not, go back because it makes a whole lot of sense now. And then this is The Lord of the Rings by George R.R. Tolkien.
One have R's and they both have initials.
I think that's the problem.
But they're different. Welcome to Off the Shelf with Christine, and for now, Katie. Just kidding. you want to save the evil one, okay? You want to save the evil one. Oh my God! Get over it. Okay. So I'm just never gonna. I'm never gonna let you live that
I
one down.
mess up the word. What do you want?
I know.
It's a Monday. You're lucky I have 2 brain cells put together.
Okay.